Welcome to Game Theorem, where we have serious discussions about absurd entertainment. Hello, General Kyle of the Sacred Order. You called me?
Yes, young hero. I have a very important task for you.
And what would that be?
You recall your reports that you gave earlier about the terrible dealings of the Holy Order.
Yes, what about those reports?
They've been doing terrible crimes and pinning them on us. This will not stand. We need you to take care of them.
Okay, and by take care of it, maybe start a publication telling how everything they're saying is wrong?
No, I think you know what we mean.
Talk to their leader?
Diplomacy? No. Come on.
Kill their leader?
How about kill them all, please? Thank you, young hero. It's been so great having you. Go along now.
Stop.
Ah!
Yeah, well, the General of the Holy Order asked me to do the same thing to you. So, yeah. And they get better loot. Yay, choices.
I'm Kyle.
I'm Kira.
And today we're talking about choices, or factions. Well, diplomacy, genocide. That's what we're talking about today, genocide. So the trope, basically, is the idea that, especially within video games, I think this is exclusive to games. Mm-hmm. Anytime there's a system of factions, often what you'll end up having is a simplified version of that where even though they call it factions and choosing your allegiance and having choices, it really just, at the core of its mechanics is who do you kill?
Yeah.
And this happens in a lot of games, even ones where you don't choose factions, but you just kill things. Like violence has been a part of video games ever since there were video games. And that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, it's not.
But when it comes to deciding on factions in games, it turns from who do you kill to who do you genocide.
Yeah, because you end up eliminating the other faction completely. Or factions.
And a lot of times, genocide is the only option.
Yeah, you don't have an option to, forge an alliance or do anything else.
I mean, I'm sure there are some games that do this fine. Some type of strategy RTS games might come to mind.
Oh, yes, definitely.
But there are also many games that fall into this trope, which we are calling genocide as diplomacy. Mm-hmm. So, take it away, Kira.
Our first example would be our biggest example. Actually, maybe you should talk about this one.
Well, okay. It was the one that helped inspire making this episode.
Yeah.
That would be Fallout 4. Mm-hmm. Now, if there's ever any debate about which Fallout's the best, which one's the worst, let's just say that this is the Fallout game that most fits this trope. And you can take that where you want.
Oh, by the way, spoilers for Fallout 4.
Spoilers for all these games.
We will say the name of the game before we talk about it, though.
If it makes you feel any better, though, you shouldn't want to be worried about Fallout 4 spoilers.
Yeah.
Fallout 4, the example is they have a faction system. Previous Fallout games had faction systems, but Fallout 4 is the one that falls into this trope. Mm-hmm. And Fallout 3, you couldn't even choose the factions. In Fallout New Vegas, they actually wrote different endings to them. And Fallout 4, what?
I was going to say we should talk about New Vegas as an example of something that...
An exception to this rule?
Yes.
Okay, but for now we're talking about Fallout 4. Mm-hmm. In Fallout 4, you have 4 factions. The factions, in general, send you to just kill the other factions entirely. The end is almost exactly the same no matter what you do. In fact, the only way to actually get peace is to not finish the game. Which isn't really even peace at that point. It's just not playing. Mm-hmm. It's like turning the movie off before the end and saying, happy ending!
Yeah.
I just imagine some movie. What's a movie where the guy dies at the end? Oh, well, I guess that's spoilers. Okay, think of whatever movie that is, and it's like right before they die, you just turn it off, say happy ending. That's what happens in Fallout 4. Because there's 4 factions. I'll just do a quick breakdown. Is that okay, Kira?
Yeah, that's fine.
Actually, you know the factions. Why don't you do the breakdown, then I'll take it after that.
Okay. So the 4 factions are the Minutemen, which are the boring, basic good guys. And then
they literally don't have any type of philosophy or belief. They're just like, we are good and help people and stuff.
Yes. Okay. Can you let me continue?
And I mean, I'm just saying like people like that don't exist, but if you're having an entire organization, you're usually going to have a core set of principles. Actually, you have to have that's like saying you don't have culture. Like, we're not robots. I mean, they're cookie cutter cardboard cutouts.
Oh, okay. Calm down.
Sorry, this game makes me angry.
I can tell. We also have the railroad, which are basically the Underground Railroad for synthetic people that
the synthetic people are considered. I mean, you kind of should have talked about the Institute before.
Yeah. I realized that.
We'll circle back to the railroad. How about that?
Yeah. Okay. So the Institute is basically a revitalization of an old college that was in
MIT.
MIT, and they have the best technology and are the most advanced
these
groups.
They're the most advanced organization, the most advanced faction in this post-apocalyptic game.
Mm-hmm. And they have the technology to create these synthetic people. And they went through several trials of this, like several generations. But Gen 3 synths are practically indistinguishable from real human beings.
Aside from one internal component.
Really?
The synth component.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, biologically, I guess if you looked at the cellular level, you'd probably notice substantial differences. Mm-hmm. But, to the naked human eye.
Yeah. And the Institute uses these synthetic people as free labor, and they are not allowed to do as they wish. They're basically slaves. Yes. And this is where the railroad comes in, because they are the Underground Railroad, basically, for these synthetic slaves. And these synthetic people do have memories and personalities. They're perfectly sentient.
But the Institute considers them lesser beings since they created them.
Yes. And
fallacy in that argument, you create babies, but they're still people.
Anyway, the railroad get these synths out of there, the ones that want to escape, and then they often perform a mind wipe on these synths to help them not remember that they're synths so that they can be placed in the world and live regular lives. Mm-hmm.
The Minutemen are an allegory towards the American Revolution, whereas the railroad are an allegory to the Civil War. Mm-hmm. The Institute's an allegory to... I have no idea.
Okay, now the fourth faction... It's science. The fourth faction is the
Nazis.
Brotherhood of Steel.
Or as I call, Robo-Nazis.
Yeah, that's a very apt name for them, actually. So they are against any synthetic people, and not only that, they are also heavily biased towards mutants of any kind.
Well, okay, see, their core philosophy, which is, okay, I mean, it's interesting. They believe that technology is what caused the post-apocalypse, so they scour and hoard all technology to themselves. Mm-hmm. But one thing that makes the group different in this game than any other Brotherhood is that they've decided that synths, even though essentially being a very advanced form of technology, also people, they think synths should just all be destroyed because they're a threat to humanity. Mm-hmm. Which, doesn't resonate with their core philosophy at all.
Yeah, and they also don't like the Institute, which is another reason why they don't want synths.
They're basically so prejudiced against the synths that it overrides their philosophy to collect and hoard them.
Yeah.
I guess it's because it's hard to prevent a synth from escaping.
Yep.
But anyway, these are the four factions you can have. They sound interesting. Like, their backstories have been thought out to a degree. Mm-hmm. What is really disappointing, though, is the way that you actually interact with them in the game. Because no matter how much you might agree with one side, and you might really want to choose one side or not choose another side, no matter what you do to help these guys out, in the end, you have to commit genocide.
Yep. No matter which side you choose, you have to kill the entirety of at least two other factions.
Yeah, and the problem with that, I think, is that, actually, I think there is a way to get three of them to survive. I'm not sure, but it's very difficult. Mm. And without mods, there's no way you can get all four to survive.
Yeah.
But usually two will die per game, even three if you want. It's really hard to actually make this decision. The thing is, when you want to destroy other factions, you don't have to do genocide. I mean, diplomacy is always an overlooked option when it comes to games. I mean, they just have such, like, violence should not always be the first choice.
Yeah.
Especially in a game that claims that you get to choose factions and have choices, right?
Yeah.
You should be able to do diplomacy. Failing that, even if you do have to go against an enemy that's irreconcilable, you should be able to conquer, not like raze to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't have
to. What you completely end up doing.
You literally have to kill all of the leaders, and then after that point, any one of their faction you ever come across. You don't get to use any of their resources. You don't get to salvage it. You don't get to assimilate. Nothing.
Yes. Actually, a really good example of this is if you side against the Brotherhood, you have to tank the Pridwin. Including
all of the children on board.
Mm-hmm. And you have to completely destroy it, and it crashes into the ground. And there were a lot of resources. Even if you're playing as a sociopathic person who doesn't care about people, there were a lot of resources on there that now are unsalvageable.
All those suits of power armor. Mm-hmm. Of T60 power armor, the best one. Well, not really, but whatever. Okay, that leads us to our next point. That's a good point, Kira. Because the next point is how the game ends. At the end of the game, no matter who you've sided with, you get a binary choice.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, well, there is one difference, but you're talking about that, yeah.
Yes. You can choose to blow up the Institute or not do that.
Yeah, you either get to blow up the Institute with one of the factions you chose, one of the three other factions, or if you side with the Institute, then you kill all the other factions and the Institute stays.
Yep. Even the Railroad, I think this really shows the absurdity of this decision. I mean, Brotherhood wants to destroy the Institute. That kind of makes sense, but you would think they would try to, like, take as much as they could with them before they left.
Yeah, the technology.
The Minutemen made no sense whatsoever, but the Minutemen made no sense to begin with. Yeah. Destroy the Institute because they're a threat. And, like, meanwhile, like, the one guy you talked about, the Minutemen, like, he answers to you. You're his boss.
Yeah.
But no, you have to blow up the Institute because he says so.
Yeah, that's another problem, actually. Sorry.
I think the absurdity I was going to talk about was the Railroad. The Railroad, they love synths. They think synths are equal people. And personally, we chose the Railroad because we agree with that.
Yeah.
I think that's a very sensible decision. However, it makes absolutely no sense for the Railroad to tell you to blow up the Institute. Like, well, they're bad, so you got to go blow them up. You can try to talk to them and debate them, but they will insist. Nope, go blow it up.
And the real
sorry, it's just the reason it doesn't make sense.
I was about to say that.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, the reason it doesn't make sense is because the Institute is the only place that has the equipment to make more sense. So basically, by blowing it up, they made synths an extinct species. An extinct species.
They just neutered it and got rid of its reproductive abilities.
Yes, so there will never be any more synths if you blow up the Institute.
And I'm sure some synths might be upset about that, or at least they would be if you hadn't brainwashed all of them.
Yeah, there's some definite, like, conflict over what they do, like whether what they do is actually a good thing.
I mean, because when you actually go through the action of doing it, there's a certain point where you've killed all the people in the Institute that were a threat. You can get an evacuation order to get everyone out, and then you blow it up, right? Right at that point, I was like, wait a minute. Why are we actually doing this? There are no hostiles left. Aren't we at least going to just make use of the super secret, awesome, advanced base instead of living in a shack in the post-apocalypse?
Yeah, their headquarters is actually under a church.
Yes,
it? It's just a ruined area, though, compared to the Institute, which is like this gleaming white whole society within a society.
Yeah. So... yeah, I think that's good for Fallout, right? So that just shows you, like, they present it as if you have a choice, but really it's just who do you murder? Because, the Institute had children in it, too. You can choose I guess you can actually choose the evacuation order.
Yeah, to get them out.
Except you never, ever see anything of it.
Oh, yeah, you don't get to see, like, Institute refugees out in the wasteland. You'd think you'd see that.
Maybe there's a random event, but we never encountered it.
Yeah.
But the whole point is the whole system seemed to be very simplified. You didn't actually get to really accomplish anything. In fact, even if you do side with the Institute, the ending is just so anticlimactic.
Oh, yes.
It's basically like, did you murder the Brotherhood? Yes, I did. Did you murder the Railroad? Yep, did murder them too. Thank you. Ending. That's it.
Yeah. And another thing that doesn't make sense about the endings is that you literally, at a point, even if you do side with the Institute, you can literally become director of the Institute, but that gives you absolutely no power to change anything.
Yeah, because just like with the Minutemen, even when you're the leader, the game won't give you the choice.
Exactly.
I think this is what they call narrative violence. Okay, so that's Fallout. So we have some other examples that we wanted to talk about. And I hope that through explaining each of these games, you'll kind of see some similarities on, genocide is diplomacy. When talking to people should be an option, but it simply isn't. Mm-hmm. And it's most egregious in games because I feel like it creates a dissonance with the player. The game tells you to do something, and you're like, well, you have to do this. And as the player, you go, no, I clearly don't have to do this. And oftentimes, the only way the game will give you, if it follows this trope, of not doing it, is simply choosing not to play the game. Mm-hmm. Which is a crappy choice. If that's your idea of choice design in a game, you failed.
Yeah, definitely.
We want to make the players have to choose not to play our game. Although, actually, now that I say that, there is one game I saw that pulled that off.
Oh, really?
Undertale.
Oh, yes. We'll talk about that later. Okay, so another example of this is Skyrim. And spoilers. There is a civil war going on in Skyrim, and you get to choose a side of the civil war. And basically, you just kill the other side. And I understand, it's a civil war. It's a war. However, the problem is that in Skyrim, you can literally become the leader of all 4 major factions in
It's a civil war between 4 sides?
No, it's a civil war between 2 sides in the land.
Well, there's just 2 also, extra factions.
There's 4 other factions.
You want to break down what they are first?
Oh, okay, so the 2 sides of the civil war are the Empire, which are the established government in the land, and they span several different kingdoms and continents, and the Stormcloaks, which are Nords, i.e. Skyrim natives, who want to take Skyrim back from the Empire. And
is the Empire oppressive?
Slightly. So there was this war with elves, and they had to sign an agreement that banned worship of a certain divine, and that divine is really worshipped a lot in Skyrim by Nords.
Like a god?
Yes, like a god. And
a deity.
Yes, they had to. Well, the argument was that he was a man who became a deity, and that's why the elves.
Hercules. Or Heracles.
Yeah, and that's why the elves made the Empire sign an agreement to ban worship of this deity. And it was a huge part of the culture in Skyrim.
Oh, so it's like a part of the culture that was just wiped away?
Yeah, and the problem with that is that because of that, some actual elven forces would sometimes kidnap Skyrim and Nords in the night and stuff like that.
Wait, what's a Skyrim? Sorry, guys, I don't know if it's clear, but I haven't played the game.
I mean, they would kidnap Nords. They're called Nords. Skyrim natives are called Nords.
Oh, the place is called Skyrim.
Yes, the place is called Skyrim.
Okay.
It's like a continent.
I have no idea.
It's like a country.
This is why Kira's talking about this part, guys.
But anyway, because Talos worship, that's the name of the deity, is illegal, these elven forces were allowed to kidnap Nords in the middle of the night if they suspected that they were worshiping Talos and a bunch of stuff like that. Now, the Empire says that they had no choice. The elves would have wiped them out if they didn't sign this agreement. And that is why the Empire does not like the Stormcloaks, because they feel they had no choice. So who are the Stormcloaks to come in and like try to take Skyrim back for the Nords? And that's another thing. The Stormcloaks aren't exactly good guys either, because you think they'd be like, oh, we're independent, we're taking back our land because they outlawed Talos worship. And,
yeah, like an underdog rebel kind of thing.
Yeah, like you would think that they would be the good guys that deserve to have Skyrim back. But they are actually really racist.
Great.
Yes, and you can tell this because in the city of the main city where the Stormcloak lives, where the leader of the Stormcloak is really segregated. And they hate elves and anyone who's basically not a Nord. And they will literally accuse them of being Imperial spies and stuff like that.
That's not really racist as much as it's like specious, isn't it?
In some cases, yeah. Because
they're both?
Yes.
Oh.
Because anyone who's not a Nord, that includes some of the other human species.
Ah, I see.
Yes, but mainly it's bigotry against elves, Argonians, which are lizard people, and Khajiit, which are cat people.
But literally everyone but their own people?
Yes.
So they think like their own, race is superior.
In a way, yes. And
they're like Daleks. Doctor Who reference.
Yeah, but that's the main problem with the Stormcloaks is their racism, and you can't really trust their leader that much either. He says he wants to take Skyrim back so that, the people can freely worship Talos and we can be independent again. But it often seems like he really just wants to take Skyrim for himself.
All right, let's wrap this up and get to the trope.
Okay, so there are 4 other guilds in Skyrim, which are the Assassin Guild, Mages Guild, Thieves Guild, and there's a Fighters Guild called the Companions. But you can become leader of all 4 of these guilds, and therefore you have a lot of people who are capable of fighting under your command. You would think that if you were the leader of all of these people, that you could tell these two, the Empire and the Stormcloaks, to basically shove it and get along.
So this is like, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but this is like Napoleon owning 2 different countries and the 2 countries being at war with each other and Napoleon not being able to do anything about it.
Yeah, I guess. But yeah, so especially since there is a bigger threat that you would think they might stop their fighting over. But no, they don't care that the world is literally going to get eaten by a dragon. They're just petty infighting between them. And I understand it's a war, so that's why you completely kill the other side. I just think there really should have been diplomatic options to resolve this conflict.
Well, I think the only argument against that, to say that, well, no, you couldn't do diplomatic options, is if it was just against the people. It's hard to ever say that you would ever get a racist group of people to agree to not be racist. You'd have to give them something else they really wanted. Mm-hmm. So I can understand why you might be able to argue, well, diplomacy would have been impossible. But at the same time, if you manage to become the leader of whichever, problematic or prejudiced group, that means they respect you as their leader, right?
Well, you never become the leader of these 2 warring factions.
But you just said you can become the leader of all the 4 factions.
There's these 2 groups, and then there's 4 other factions you can become the leader of.
Oh, so those are not 2 of the... Okay.
Yes, but still, you're a powerful person.
So you would think you just have enough influence to be... Okay.
Especially since...
so that'd be like the Pope trying to stop infighting in Europe and having absolutely no say. Like it'd be like if no one listened to the Pope.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another thing. You are literally a person of legend, which the Stormcloaks actually really believe in this legend. And it's like a huge thing in their culture.
So religiously, they should be able to listen to you.
Yes.
Wait, do you ever have the option to even bring it up?
I believe there's this one single point in the story where you can tell them to stop fighting.
And it just dismisses it.
Yeah. You can tell them to stop fighting for a bit, or you can like get them to agree to cede territory or whatever. But this is literally just a temporary thing that you just do just to get them out of the way so that you can do your job as this person of legend.
Like the quest.
Yes. And if you choose either side, then you can also get them out of the way and, do your job as this person of legend.
So no matter what you do, by the end, you end up having to commit genocide against one of these factions.
Yes, basically.
Multiple or just one?
Just one.
Just one?
Just either side.
Oh, okay.
You choose a side.
So you can't just kill everyone?
Yeah.
Okay.
But...
Choice!
But yeah, the choices between these two factions is really horribly done, I feel.
Doesn't Skyrim, like Elder Scrolls, market itself as a choice-driven RPG in a fantasy world?
I suppose so, yeah. But yeah, so the choice in this war is really not that much of a choice at all.
So it's another example of you don't have any type of diplomatic options. Oh, wait, question. It is genocide, right? Like, because what would be nice if it wasn't genocide is if you could just, like, you take out the leaders, you can take over, you can take the throne, take their territory, and assimilate them into your country. Basically, you win the war by how wars are won in every single war in real life.
Yeah, no. In each battle, you take over the entire town, which means you end up killing the leader of that town. Because each territory has a leader called a youre.
So you have to kill the leader of each individual town?
Yes, and all the troops that are in that town.
What about the civilians?
You don't kill the civilians.
But aren't they, like, marked hostile or something? So anytime you encounter them, they fight you?
It depends, I think. I'm not sure. I never
But
actually
it does seem like a
through.
majority then.
Yes. Basically, you just do this war and take over the place, and then there are no stormcloaks in that territory ever again.
I mean, in most wars in history, it's just not worth the effort to commit a genocide. You take over the town, you take over power, and you get the people to listen to you.
Yeah, but you take it over by force. You not only kill the leader, but you kill all the troops. Like, it is a proper battle to take over.
Okay, but that's how war works. That in itself is okay, except for the fact that you just have to kill everyone. That's not right. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, I guess you could ask yourself, would the war violate the Geneva Conventions? Like, because at that point, like, you're killing civilians and stuff, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
You're the expert.
Okay, but I never played through the Civil War because it's just so boring.
So what, you did research to figure out?
Yeah, I just did. I just never chose a side myself because I had looked at these two sides.
And you were just so dissatisfied that you didn't do it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's similar to Fallout 4 situation. The only way to have diplomacy is just not to finish the game.
Yeah. But, like, it's a war, but there should be other options.
I feel like there definitely could have been a way to write the war in a more convincing way and have an outcome that doesn't involve, killing everyone. Mm-hmm. I mean, in any war, like, there should be some sympathizers on the opposing side,
Yeah, like, all you do is take over these towns and kill people. That's all you do in this war. You never do missions to, like, get intel or anything like that.
Especially if you're siding with the rebels. I find it very hard to believe there wouldn't be any figureheads or mayors or leaders or whatever in the established empire that wouldn't be like, oh, I'll flip for you for some money.
Well, there's their territory and the other guy's territory, and you take over their territory in the battles. Mm-hmm. So you go into their cities and kill people.
Yeah, so really it just seems at the end of the day, this trope just exists for a very simple way to make choices. Like, you're having choices, sure, but in, like, the most simple way imaginable.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's just so ridiculous how powerful a person you can be in Skyrim, and no one recognizes it. You do not have the power to stop this war or to, get them to just shove it. Like, guys, stop fighting. This isn't that big a deal.
And I can understand how that could be frustrating. I don't think it necessarily means they would have to come to peace just because of your
it
influence,
doesn't have to be to peace.
But they don't even like really consider or give you the time to make your case.
Yeah, the only time you can even get them to do a ceasefire or truce is like you have to get them to make agreements. Okay, you cede this town and you cede this town, and
then what happens?
Then they'll agree to it, and that's the most you can do is get them to agree to a temporary truce long enough for you to save the world.
And then what happens?
And you could still, I believe, choose either side in the war and still complete that quest line.
So it's like incomplete until you do it?
Yes.
So it's like an unfinished quest. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's just unfortunate.
Yeah, especially since at the beginning of the game...
I mean, a ceasefire... Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Mm-hmm. Continue.
At the beginning of the game, you can choose either side to go with, and the soldier that you follow through the beginning area suggests to you that you join their side of the war. Like, this war is present from the absolute beginning of the game.
I find it hard to believe that... Man, I forgot what I was going to say. What was the point you just made before you said that?
Oh, I was talking about the ceasefire truce or whatever you want to call it.
A ceasefire can theoretically last forever. I mean, look at Korea.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I guess it's not forever, but a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, I think it would have been good if like you do a ceasefire, like that's an ending. It ends right there.
Yeah, but that isn't an ending. That is literally just to get you through that one quest where you have to deal with this war in order to do your job as, you know, the hero.
So it's just very temporary.
Mm-hmm. You can, pretty sure you could just still choose either side after that.
Admittedly, I think Fallout 4 is more egregious than this example.
Oh, yes. I agree it's more egregious because, like, this is an actual war. You can kind of understand why they would be irreconcilable. But that doesn't mean that the option shouldn't be there.
I mean, you have to agree it would at least be a better written story if... like the war happens despite negotiations, like negotiations break down, you know?
Mm-hmm. But it's just, you are the pinnacle person in this war. You choose the side and that side wins. And if you don't choose a side, then you just don't play through the Civil War.
Okay, I think we should talk about the next game.
Yes, okay.
The next one we have on here is BioShock Infinite. You're in a town. It's a flying town. It was built in, it takes place in 1912, I think. Yeah, 1912. And it's a town that uses like quantum levitation to be able to fly. And it goes around. It used to be part of America, but they were so evangelical they ended up breaking off from America. Now in the game, like there is a moment that starts the combat and it involves racism. What?
Spoilers for BioShock Infinite.
Yeah, although we're not going to be going that deep into it.
Yeah, no, but for the beginning part.
The game starts off beautifully. It has a story. It looks amazing. When you get to the flying town of Columbia, it's beautiful. And this town, they have a unified leadership. I mean, well, there's a rebel faction from the poor, but there's a government. Mm-hmm. So when you're in the town, you have to play by the rules of the town. You're undercover. In fact, you have a marking on your arm. If anyone sees it, they will know to shoot you on sight. Mm-hmm. Okay? So you go into town, and they're having a raffle. You draw a ticket for the raffle. It turns out to be the winning ticket. The ticket, however, is a baseball. They draw the curtains back on the stage, and the richest man in Columbia is there saying, "Hello, our lucky winner. You get the first throw." And you see an interracial couple. A Caucasian man and are they American? I guess they're from America. A Caucasian Colombian man and an African Colombian woman. Mm-hmm. And they apparently tried to elope together, and they were caught. And they have drawings and pictures of monkeys all around them. It's incredibly offensive. Mm-hmm. Are you okay, Kira? You want to say something?
No, I'm okay.
You seemed kind of horrified.
Yeah, this was a pretty horrifying bit of racism, but Colombia is racist.
Yeah, I mean, it's 1912, so America was racist too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was pretty horrifying to see, although I guess Colombia is more racist.
I don't know.
They were too radical for America. That's why they were evicted.
Oh, yeah, fair enough. Okay.
So, well, they weren't evicted. They tried to get them to call back. They said, Colombia, come back. And Colombia's like, nope, we're going to be flying.
Yep.
So anyway, at this interracial stoning, essentially. They give you a baseball, and the lucky winner gets the first throw at the couple. The game then gives you a choice. And this is the first choice you're given the entire game. Up to this point, it's just been intros, narrative, dialogue, cutscenes.
Walking through the city.
And it's great and all. But here, the meat of the game is starting. In this game, BioShock is based on a series that has a lot of combat and violence. So it's actually very unique for this game to take place in such a peaceful city and for you not to have had any violence in the first 20 minutes.
So by the way, there's a very good reason for the immediate violence in the past 2 games. So it's not like it's just mindless violence.
Yeah, because you're literally in the ruins of a city, whereas this town is perfectly functioning. Well, maybe not perfectly. But
it's debatable.
So you then have to have a choice. You can not blow your cover by throwing the ball at the interracial couple, or you can blow your cover and throw it at the rich guy, the host. No matter what decision you choose, the outcome is the same.
The, what was it, the security guard or police guy?
Yeah. If you try to throw it at the security guard, he grabs your hand, recognizes the symbol, and catches you. If you try to throw it at the interracial couple, when you do so, they see the mark on your hand, and you get found out anyway. Both ways you get found out. And then when you're found out, you immediately kill the officer, and you have to fight a bloody fight that never ends. And that's the rest of the game.
Yeah.
There's interesting dialogue and story. I'm not saying the rest of the game is worthless. There's some cool aspects to it. But from that point on, violence, violence, violence. You're a wanted person.
Yes. And everybody, all the security in the city is against you.
Exactly. There is a part later on in the game where if you chose to not throw it at the couple, they give you an item as a thank you. But I feel like that's inadequate.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. Here's the defense that people would use. People would say, you could say that this game is a fatalist game. They specifically designed all of the choices in the game to be fatalistic, but no matter what you choose, the result is the same. There is only one ending in this game. And they spend a long time trying to make this linear story. And there is a place for linear stories. I think that's okay. What bothers me is being told I have a choice and then removing the consequences of that choice. You understand?
Yeah, I completely understand what you mean.
Like, I understand if you don't want to give me choices, but you give them to me, and they might even seem to matter for a moment.
But they don't actually end up mattering.
So, like, for example, there's one choice where you choose which necklace your female companion Elizabeth gets. And she will wear that necklace for the rest of the game. You might even think to yourself, wow, I made a choice. This might matter.
I mean, it turns out to be pretty inconsequential.
It literally does not have any effect. She changes her outfit later in the game.
But she still wears the necklace.
Exactly. So while it may not have a direct impact on the end of the game, you can still notice the difference that you caused, even if it doesn't change the overarching narrative. And
exactly.
I think that's what's important here.
Yeah.
Because that right there throws out the window that these things are mutually exclusive. You can't use the argument by saying, oh, well, this is a fatalistic game. It's what they're trying to do. I would argue back that you can still have fatalism and that the end result is ultimately the same, but you could have some differences along the way.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like saying fatalism is taking two different roads that lead to the same place.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, but they were basically the same road. You could have had two different roads that go for 5 miles each, even if they led to the same place.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think a good way with this choice about the interracial couple specifically would have been to have some actual consequences to your action. So maybe you throw it at the couple and you did a terrible thing and all the audience joins in with you, but your cover's maintained. And maybe there's an event that happens only if you did this. So like later you're walking out and like you bump into someone and they notice your mark, you get caught, right? But at least you had a certain amount of time to have a unique experience based on the effects of your action. And maybe later on you find like the couple beaten to death or something. That would show you that your actions had an effect. Maybe people just like you because you're racist. You know, because you show that you're on their side. So maybe like you're still a criminal wanted man, but the dialogue lines are slightly different to have you have a more favorable opinion, at least by the wealthier elites, right?
Yeah, but none of that happens.
No, it doesn't. And then on the other side, like you don't throw it at them, you throw it at the host, and that's what gets you found out. And then you go to violence as usual. And I think this will actually work really well in the narrative, because it's the idea that no matter what decision you made, fate intervened and made you had to do violence. Yeah. Whether it was throwing it at the host and getting found out, or whether it was keeping your cover blown, but then just something else happened to get your cover blown. Yeah. As opposed to really just making your choices so inconsequential.
I completely agree with you there.
Yeah. And this was just one big example. I chose this example from the game because I felt like this was the most controversial and egregious one. I remember when the game was coming out, people were like, wow, BioShock is tackling racism. Good on you for attempting that. Let's see how you do. And then it's just completely irrelevant to the game.
Yeah. All right.
And then from that point on, it's just kill, 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 kill. Which is rather unfortunate. I mean, at least in previous BioShock games, you can choose not to kill people. Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes.
Sometimes. Not very often.
They had a lot of different endings, too, based on who you killed and who you didn't.
Yes, and that was definitely something that they were going a different route for. They wanted the fatalist approach. I just don't feel like that's a good enough excuse to justify not having better paths. I mean, like, look at Telltale games. They got the figure 8 path going on, you know? You make two different choices, they go two different ways, but then they loop back in on each other. You draw it out as a diagram of 8s.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's BioShock. We had a few other examples. We talked about factions and stuff. And BioShock Infinite, the faction was, you know, the wealthy versus the poor. Even though you have a linear story, they're two very defined factions. But in other games, sometimes I think it's a trope that's kind of related to genocide as diplomacy, but not quite. It's related in that there's many games where you just do violence on enemies like you do in any other game, except the enemies are clearly sentient and you clearly don't have to do it. There are situations where you do the killing, but you as the player are asking yourself, why am I doing this? Do I have to do this? And you realize the answer is no. Like, if the game would let me, I would just choose, like, maybe talk instead of kill.
Yeah. I understand what you mean. And the best example of this is Nier Automata.
Well, the best we could think of.
Yes. You basically spend almost the entire game mindlessly killing these robots. Although, actually, I think there are two factions in that game, because it's you, the androids, versus the robots.
Yes and no. It's a lot more complicated than that. You find out that really you're not that different, except you've been murdering them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, spoilers for Nier Automata.
We already said spoilers for all these games.
Okay. But anyway, the thing that makes it awful is that a lot of the time while you're killing these robots, they express very human sentiments and very sad ones at that. Like, they will say, like, I don't want to die, or
scary, or
why are you doing this?
Yeah. And it's sad because it feels like you should be able to just choose not to kill them, when really the only option you have is, like, running away. You might be able to say, well, they're hostile to you. You don't have a choice. And I understand. That's what the argument they use in the game, and that's how you have to, as the player, rationalize it so you don't put the game down. So many times, like, oh, well, I have to kill these people. They're shooting me. I have to defend myself. But then I ask, why are they shooting? Why can't you just, like, hide behind cover and ask them to stop? Why can't you at least try these different options? I feel like the failure is on the writer's part to not give you a way out of this.
Yeah, I agree.
And there is one particular sequence in Nier Automata that I found pretty egregious. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are good robots that don't fire on you. But these feel like far and in between NPCs, whereas, you know, you kill thousands of them. Do you want to talk about the egregious example, or should I?
You talk about it.
Okay.
You're the one that knows.
There's this one part in the game where you go to the Forest Kingdom. And it's basically this old Forest Kingdom that's now ruled by robots. And they even have a Forest King. They have knights. They have an entire system of government. But the moment you approach, they attack you mindlessly. You have no option to converse. Since their entire system of government is based off of European, feudal castle structures, right? Mm-hmm. You would think there would be some type of envoy system. Be like, hey, I'm not here to kill you all, so maybe don't try to kill me. But if you go in there and you can choose immediately to just start slashing them up with your swords and lasers, of course they're going to fight back. The thing is, the game assumes that's going to happen. Either you're going to instigate the fight or they're going to instigate the fight. There's just no option for any type of negotiation. And while there are NPCs, I feel that don't fall into this. The Forest Kingdom, I really hated it because you killed them all, right? Mm-hmm. And because of your actions, the king ends up getting killed. All of the forces get killed. Before you know it, the entire place is desolate. You feel like a murderer that has just destroyed an entire culture. Yeah. And it reveals this to you as if you're supposed to go like the gang goes, oh, ha, the kingdom is dead now. You're a great person. And I just respond, I didn't want to do that. I felt I had to complete the quest, and you never gave me a peaceful way to do that.
Yeah, it's really sad.
And I would argue that if there are other peaceful robots, why were none of these ones peaceful? Mm-hmm.
Because you can come across actually one specific robot settlement where everyone there is peaceful, and they're all just NPCs.
And that was nice. That was good. Mm-hmm. But it feels like they're like that. It feels like they're the exception to the rule. Mm-hmm. I feel like you should be able to do that with most given robots.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like if a robot is irreconcilable, that can be part of the robot's character. There could be mindless robots that just simply don't know what they're doing. In fact, I think that's kind of what the game pushes on for you. Like a lot of the robots you find are still at like factory settings. They don't really understand sentience yet. So they just attack on sight. I can kind of understand that. But this Forest Kingdom, they evolved. They had a new culture. Mm-hmm. In fact, they claimed their king was peaceful.
Yeah. And the game goes so far to show you that these robots are not all mindless killers. Like, it would be fine if the entire game you never got to see robots that were peaceful, but there's so many times in this game where they make you feel bad for killing these robots because they have like these touching moments or they'll say something that really touches you and you feel like these robots are sentient and not all of them are bad people.
It feels like they're trying to make you feel guilty and it just does not work on me because I did not want to do it the entire time.
You don't get a choice.
I mean, well, the only choice you have is to put the game down, do something else. And as I said, that is a terrible choice.
Yeah.
If you're asking me to choose to not play your game, well, you didn't sell me your game very well, did you?
Yeah, exactly.
Unless you consider the fact that I already paid for it, but then I got ripped off. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you talk about, we got one more example, I think?
We can just talk about the exceptions to this trope.
Well, you want to be quick about it?
Nah.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, okay, it was Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild. Kira was telling me there were creatures or something.
The monsters seem kind of sentient and have their own society.
So kind of like the robots.
Yeah, and you can choose not to kill them, but they will
still be immediately hostile trying to kill you.
Yes,
So you can't even interact with their culture.
Yes.
All you can do is pilfer it. Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Okay, exceptions.
Yes.
Why don't you talk about the first one?
Undertale, which is great because the entire game you don't have to kill a thing. And it does it really well because you can do a pacifist playthrough where you don't kill anything. And then you can also do a playthrough where you kill everything. So it has different endings.
It's also
on the way you play it.
It's literally called the Genocide playthrough.
Yes, it's literally called the Genocide route.
And I was citing this earlier, that this is the one game I've seen using the choice of putting the controller down effectively. Because if you do the genocide route where you kill every single creature you come across, the game admonishes you for it. It recognizes the people you killed. The characters fear you. They hate you.
Yeah. And they try to stop you.
Yes. And so often there's actually like the final boss character is actually your friend the whole time, even though you're killing everyone. And he's there literally just trying to tell you, hey, please stop. Stop doing this. Spoiler. You killed my brother. Please stop.
Yeah.
He doesn't like you, but he never raises a finger against you until you kill literally every other creature besides him.
Yeah.
So I felt like that was a really cool way to say, like, please just put down the game. Stop doing this.
And he literally says stuff that sort of suggests that.
Yes. And I feel like that was really powerful. I could feel like putting down the controller would have been a viable decision. That would have been me choosing to spare these creatures.
Oh, yeah. And he actually, crap. I forget something he says about, he says...
Oh, this is Sans, by the way.
Yeah, Sans.
He's a skeleton. We already spoiled it, so.
But yeah, he tells you you don't have to do this. And I believe he even tells you that you could just reset.
Oh, yeah. I feel like resetting is essentially the same as putting on the controller because you're wiping all your progress.
And also the blatant even difficulty of this final fight also encourages you to just stop because you have to put in a lot of effort and tries to get past him. So just the amount of difficulty you have in this final fight suggests that maybe you're not supposed to succeed here.
Yeah, it's almost like one of those game-breaking things, like where they make it so hard that you're not supposed to win, except that's intentional this time.
Yeah, exactly.
So, did we make it clear this is a good example of the way of doing things?
Oh, yes.
And
this is a great example.
Consequences to your actions.
Yes, and not only consequences, but you have a lot of choice.
But I feel once you actually beat the genocide route, you have essentially put in all this effort for nothing. And it's very unrewarding in that way. Like, the same way that it feels like when you're doing the genocide route, that putting the controller down can be rewarding. You're choosing to spare the people. You're making a very conscious decision. If you continue to do it, they're really like, why are you doing this? What's the point? Until eventually you've killed everyone. And then that's it. And the game's just kind of like, are you happy?
Yeah, it really makes you reflect.
And you can restart the game, but after you do that, your save file is permanently affected. Even if you go back and do the good ending, like your character has been tainted.
And you see this at the end of the good ending if you go back and do it.
You can never truly get a good ending again. The so-called good ending becomes really just a good evil ending.
Yeah.
So the pacifist ending.
Yeah.
What do they have a word for what that ending is even called?
The pacifist ending?
No, the bad version of it.
The genocide route.
No. Like after you do genocide, when you go back and do pacifist.
I don't know. I think it might be called literally like.
I don't know, but I would call it like the tainted ending. So yeah. Oh, and then there's another game that we wanted to put on here as an exception. Shadow of the Colossus.
Yes. So
if you don't know what that game is, basically, you're the main character. I don't remember the names, honestly. It's been so long. You have a wife, and your wife is in trouble. You make a deal with the devil. Basically, to save your wife, you have to go around and do these horrible things like kill these giant colossi, these giant things. And they are completely peaceful. All they do, they're like giant walking land masses, basically. And you don't have a choice. You just have to kill them. And so this would feel like it fits the trope, right? There's these very peaceful, very sentient things, and you have no choice but to kill them. And then by the end, it's like, see, haha, you did these bad things. Aren't you a terrible person? As the player, you might go, well, I knew they were bad. I didn't want to do them. But you're not angry this time. And that's why I want to say this is an exception. Because from the very beginning, it was clear you were not the good guy here. You know? Well, you might have thought you were, that like, I have no choice, I'm going to save her, right? But you knew you had to do bad things to get that to happen, right?
I've never played through this.
Well, from the very first time you kill one of the giants, you feel like I have just like slain a beautiful elephant. You know what I mean?
And I believe if you kill all of them, then that's no more colossi. You completely committed genocide against the species.
But the thing is, when they do the reveal, like, you're a terrible person, and the devil doesn't honor his deal quite. Well, not in the way you'd expect. I think, if I recall correctly, I think he like becomes you or possesses you or something, whatever. But the point is that there was a narrative to it. The reveal was more on the character's part. Like how far would you go to save the one you love? As the player, you never went, oh yeah, I knew what was wrong, but you didn't give me a choice game. Instead, you go, yeah, I knew it was wrong, but I didn't have a choice game. I have to save her. Like it's from the character's perspective.
Yes.
And that's why I feel like while Shadow of the Colossus would fit the trope, they wrote their way out of it. So.
Yeah, I've heard that game has a really good story, so.
Anything else you want to say about this trope?
I just feel like, give us more choices in regards to the violence in our video games. Violence isn't a bad thing, at all. I'd be okay with slaughtering hordes of enemies as the next person. But if you're going to write a story, then give us choices within this story.
Give us a good reason to slaughter those people. And don't try to make us feel bad about it when you didn't give us any other way out.
Yeah.
I'll say that in general. Because as Undertale and Shadow of the Colossus shows, you can write your way out of it. You can find an exception to every rule. That's art for you.
Yeah.
I don't know what the name of the painting is, but there's this one painting made by this really famous artist. I forget it, but this basically how it goes is someone challenged this artist. He said, there is absolutely no way to draw a beautiful painting with a solid line down the middle. It just completely breaks your composition. There's no way, like that. It's a childish mistake. There's no way you can make a good painting while still doing that. And the artist goes, I'll take you up on that challenge.
Wow. And
he did. You might have recognized it. It's like a London street. The line is basically this giant street pole with a light. And there's like British people with like umbrellas. It's raining. And the idea is like he actually painted in such a way that the line goes to other lines that are like perpendicular and horizontal and perspective lines. There's so many lines throughout the piece that it keeps your eye moving around, and it's considered a masterpiece today.
Yeah.
Even though like it's like how authors will sometimes break grammar.
Oh yeah.
It's
on
like,
purpose.
Yeah. Once you know the rules, you can break them, and that's why I feel Undertale and the Shadow Colossus do.
Yeah. I completely agree with you there.
But that's why I feel that Fallout 4, Skyrim, and even Bioshock Infinite, Nier Automata, and Legend of Zelda at times did here, is they broke it, but they didn't know how to break it. They didn't know the rules enough to break it responsibly. They just shattered it on the ground and hoped to get something beautiful.
Yeah.
It's not any wonder that two of these games are made by the same company.
Yeah.
You can do better, guys. All right, well, I think we're done here. If you have any corrections or suggestions or questions, please email us at gametheorems@gmail.com. We have so much social media. Check it out, all the links.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.